All right, today we are studying a new unit on ecology, which you'll note is a study of how organisms interact with their environment. So we're going to look at a few factors and terms that go along with ecology. This unit itself has a lot of terms and definitions you guys will need to know. So please take good notes, pause this, go back, highlight, do what you need to do, but there's a lot of terms that we will use throughout this unit. So make sure you're getting them all down and starting to learn what they mean. So first we're going to look at something called the biosphere. So the biosphere is the part of the earth that supports life. So it's from the ground, the grass, the soil, all the way up to the troposphere, so the layer of earth where life can exist. We break that down into 6 different pieces. And you can look at the triangle or the pyramid over here as we go. So we're going to start at the top. Organism. We use the term organism to define one single individual organism. So it's one white-tailed deer. It is one muskie. It is one Asian beetle. What have you. It's just one single in one human being. Population is our next term. Population is the term given to all of the individuals in a given area of the same species. So it's all of the ladybugs in Buffalo. It is all of the mice in a 5-acre plot of land. So it's just one, it's the population is the same species in a given area. Community is our third step up. Community is when we take into account all of the living things in a given area. So it's all of the different populations put together in one. So community is all of our living things. So our community, again, Buffalo community would be all of our plants and animals, including humans in that mix as well. Fourth step up is ecosystem. Now in the ecosystem, we add in all of the non-living factors. So prior to that, organism, population, community, all of these are only taken into account the living parts of our environment. Ecosystem, now we're including the non-living. So the air, the nutrients, the water, those pieces get added in when we talk about ecosystem. Biome is not on this period. Biome you guys learned about pretty heavily in middle school. Biome, you're looking at the same type or individuals that live in the same type of environment. So you can talk desert, you can talk tundra, grassland, wetland, you name it. Biosphere is our last one. And again, biosphere is just including any area on Earth, where life can exist. Biosphere is divided between living and non-living parts, like we looked at. Biotic is the term we use to describe living things. Abiotic is used to describe non-living things. Here's an image to give you just a couple examples of that. So biotic, bio meaning living, abiotic, non-living factors. Both are important when we're talking about any type of ecosystem. Trophic levels, we're going to break it down even further. Some of these terms you may have heard of before, some might be new. When you hear the term producer, it goes hand in hand with the term autotroph. Autotroph or producers are those organisms that can make their own energy from the sun, right? So our producers are primarily our plants. They make up the bottom part of this, part of the trophic levels here, the pyramid here. And that includes, like I said, all of your plants, anything that runs through photosynthesis and takes their energy from the sun. As far as the mass or biomass we call it, the producers make up the majority of the biomass on Earth. So it's a pretty big or heavy chunk down here. Everything above producers are considered heterotrophs. Heterotrophs have to consume something to gain their energy. Versus producers on the bottom, energy from the sun. Autotrophs, everything above that, we consider those consumers or heterotrophs because they actually have to consume something to gain their energy. couple other terms off to the side here. Again, probably a refresher. Herbivores eat primarily plants. Carnivores eat meat. Omnivores eat both plant and animal matter. The last and very important part of this slide is called the 10% rule. This is referring to the amount of energy that gets passed on from one organism to the next in either a food chain or a food web, and we'll look at that briefly next. So if you're looking at this diagram again, or this image, producers on the bottom make up the majority of that biomass. Let's say they hold 10,000 kilocalories of energy. So that number is referring to the amount of energy. As you move up, the first or primary consumer is a rabbit in this example. A rabbit eats the grass. That rabbit only gains 1,000 calories from the initial number in the producers. So only 10% of the energy is passed on from each energy source, for each level as you move through here. So 10,000 on the bottom, 10% of that, oops, I'm sorry, 10% of that goes to the initial consumer, the rabbit. So you have 1,000 here. Only 10% of that moves to the third level here, the secondary consumers. So now you're down to 100. That hawk is the top consumer here, the tertiary consumer. They only receive 10% or 10 kilocalories of that initial energy. So you'll note that that number drops pretty drastically. And it drops because a lot of that energy is being lost as heat, or it's just being used by the organism for its daily life processes. So that's why only 10% of the initial energy gets moved on. So 10,000, 1,000, 100 to 10. So as you move up, the amount of initial energy drops pretty significantly. That's called the 10% rule. Lastly, and probably review for you, you have food chains versus food webs. So just quick clarifying. Food chain only shows one path of energy. So it just shows you one set of arrows going from your producer on the bottom to your tertiary or top level consumer at the top, and then everything in between. Your food web shows multiple pathways, and it's really a more realistic approach to looking at how energy is transferred through organisms, because this is much more realistic of what actually happens. A food chain is great for identifying terms and just looking at one simple pathway, but a food web is actually more realistic out in our actual natural world. So again, covered food chains, food webs, the different levels of trophic levels, and that very important 10% rule. Please let us know if you have any questions.